Take our
This
time.
conference will now be recorded.
Perfect.
Hello, church. This is Pastor Madeline, and I am joined today in our next discussion in our series of quick to listen discussions on race and race relations by a good friend of mine. Her name is Jean Laws Scott, and Jean is an attorney in Stuart, Florida. She's also the mother of some wonderful girls that my daughter went to school with, and that's how we know each other. Our children, two of Jean's girls and my daughter were in chorus and theater together, so we were very involved parents, and we got to know each other that way. Jean is also a member of Trinity United Methodist Church of Jensen Beach. And she has served in leadership roles in the United Methodist Church and is currently serving in a leadership role and very involved in the church. So, Jean, thank you so much for being with us today. As I've mentioned to you, this is a series of conversations that we're having just to spark some thoughts and some discussions that are super important between all of us. We show this video on Tuesday evenings on our Facebook page, and then we have a discussion on Wednesday evenings that's open to anyone on Zoom. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you so very much, Madeline, for inviting me. I look forward to our conversation today, and I look forward to sharing with your church family.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we start off? Would you just tell us a little bit about your story, your growing up, your past, your present, whatever you'd like to share with us?
Well, thank you. As you indicated, I was actually raised in the United Methodist Church in a small town in upstate New York. So I have, had my first communion, and joined the church at a very young age. The church has always been very, very important to me. And it's interesting that we're having this kind of dialogue, because I was actually raised in a United Methodist Church, which was predominantly white. And, at that age, you just don't see color. You don't see color. And that's the beauty of our youth and of our children, and trying to ensure that they understand that it's not just about what's outside, but what's inside. And that's something that the United Methodist Church, promotes. I fast forward to now, I'm married to my husband, Gregory, and we have three amazing daughters, Chandler, who's 19, and then the twins, Morgan and Jordan, who are friends with Sarah, who are just graduating from high school this week. I have currently taken my skills into the corporate arena, and I work for CBRE as a senior contracts manager, and my primary account is the Florida Power and Light. So I basically manage all of their vendor contracts in their corporate offices, as well as their service centers and substations. And then, personally, as well as community-wise, I've always been involved in our community. And just wanted to always give back because I truly believe much that has been given to me, it should be given back. And, we promote that with the children as well. With what's going on right now, it's interesting that one Friday night at about 11:30, my oldest twin daughter, Morgan, came to me and said, "Mom, we've got to do something with regard to the George Floyd situation." When she watched that video, and of course, we've always been a very open family. We've always talked about things at the dinner table. We talk about politics. We talk about, policy, about social issues. We learn from the children just as much as they've learned from us. I mean, with social media, it's so their world is so open and so instant. And so she came to me and said, "We've got to do something." And I said, what do you want to do, Morgan? She said, "We're basically want to organize a protest or a march." And I said, "Well, let's call it a march, because we want to ensure that we're bringing the community together, not trying to be, divisive or dividing our community." So she said, here's the social media advertisement, put it on your Facebook. So I did. And then I woke up probably about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I immediately contacted and I reached out to our local police chief. And I said, Chief, would you help us? And he said, I saw this on your Facebook post. And he was a little bit concerned. He said, it's not you guys that I'm concerned about. It's people that may not have the same intentions. But together, we, with those children, and I want to call them children, but with those young adults, basically had an amazing march of 1,000 people. You know about Roosevelt Bridge. So they basically shut it down on one side so that we could cross over. We walked across the bridge. They shut it down so we could go back onto the other side and walk back. But it was amazing. And the support, and I guess this is why I'm bringing this up now, is because the support that we had from our white brothers and sisters was significant. And they were there to support us and to support this situation, this cause, and to also just to say, I want to be part of this. I want to help. What can I do? And the overwhelming response really too was, what are we going to do next? And so that's what really has precipitated a lot of these talks that we're having. The girls now are on the local radio station. I'm talking to folks just like yourself, and just basically communicating that we all need to have this dialogue and not sort of put it in our pocket and we go one way and you go another. It's about us all coming together and working this situation out together within our respective communities.
That's great. I watched the march on social media. I watched as you guys were doing that, and I thought it was fabulous. So that's terrific. What do you think is the best thing? Maybe you answered this already. That had come out of that march. What is the best thing that you've seen come out of that march that you did?
An openness to communicate,
Okay.
a belief that there's no right or wrong way to discuss the issue as long as we're discussing the issue.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, a lot of people said, well, I feel bad. Well, what are you feeling bad about? Because things have happened. That's fine, but let's take it to where we are right now. What can we do together to raise awareness, to ensure that within our own communities, and the thing of it, I can't, like you're in Boca, I can't necessarily say what's going to happen in Boca, but I know what I can do here in Stewart. I know what I can do here in Jensen Beach. I even know what I can do here when I'm working in the corporate office here in Juno Beach. There are communities that I can affect. There are folks that my friends that I can speak to that we can all say, you know, reach out to one another. For example, my boss came to me the Monday after the march and said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm fine. And he was not aware about the march. And then he said, so what can I do? First of all, I want to know, what can I do? I'd like to know, what can my church do? And one of the things that he said, I look at the fact that, you know, he lives in Palm Beach Gardens, and right next door is Riviera Beach. And the difference in the communities, you know, is startling. So his church has now reached out to a church in Riviera Beach, and they're working collaboratively to not only just help one another, but actually have services together. Okay, so when we talk about, you know, the stark reality that Sunday at 11 o'clock is probably one of the most segregated times that we still and continue to have, it's about this one man saying, I want to work and to reach out and worship together. And that's what they're doing. And so now, once a month, the churches are alternating where they're worshiping. The church in Riviera Beach is smaller, but for them, they're saying, we've never had our church so packed with folks. Wow. You know, the choirs are working together, they're singing together. So that's the kind of thing that I have watched happen because we're talking, because someone said, what can I do? And actually effectuated, you know, an amazing partnership and brotherhood, sisterhood between two churches.
That's wonderful. You know, My next question was going to be, what would you want a predominantly white church to know right now? And it sounds like you sort of answered that with you'd want us to know that we need to take a next step to reach out to one another and do things together. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Like, for example, so I said the same thing to my pastor, because I'm just going to go historically. Historically, you realize that the AME church came from the Methodist church. And one of the issues was that the African Americans, or the blacks at that time, was what they were called, or the Negroes, had to sit either in the back of the church or up in the upstairs. And they would have pews that said BM, Black members. Okay. And then I think that, the leadership, wanted to actually have more, the Black members wanted to have more of a leadership role in the church, and that was not allowed. And so that's when they started their own church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So I would say to our brethren, whether the Black church or the white church, that we come together and share as Christians, as one, as a unit, because that's the strength that we need to really deal with some very negative forces that are going on right now. And we talk about the fact also that, our numbers are dwindling, within the United Methodist Church. So how do we increase those numbers? How do we bring our brothers and sisters back into the fold? Because maybe one of the issues is because a lot of times, you see in the United Methodist Church a predominantly white church. I still belong to United Methodist Church, but we're probably one of 5 families in that church. So we are also talking to the AME Church in Stewart, and and hoping to do some collaborative things. Like my boss, I thought he was a perfect example. I was like, that's somebody who said, not only this is how I feel, but this is how I want to respond to those feelings and make sure that I'm making a difference.
Great. That's a great answer. Sometimes I think that if I asked you what should the church do, which you've already answered, but then I ask you, what advice would you give a friend? Would that advice be any different? What would you say to a friend about this situation?
I'd say to my friend, I'm glad that you and I are having a conversation. If you're saying a friend, a white friend, okay? Because now, it's funny, we never really have been using those distinctions, my white friend or my Black friend. But I have said to my white friends, you may be at a cocktail party, well, not now because of COVID, or you may be at a meeting, or you may be in a Zoom meeting, or you may be, talking with family members. And if something were to come up that makes you feel uncomfortable as it relates to race, I think it's time that you address that right then and there. Don't just sort of let it go and not respond to it, or let it just hang in the air. I think that it's incumbent upon our white brothers and sisters to also be our voices where we're not. If we're not there, because I would say something if I felt uncomfortable, but more likely than not, it wouldn't have been said anyway, because I'm there. Right. So since you all, are, maybe, with someone that makes a negative comment, have the strength to really gently correct that person and let them know that that is just not how we should act, especially as Christians, especially as, a community that's trying to lift people up, regardless of their race. All right, we're trying to lift, and the other thing is we're supposed to all be, brothers and sisters. So if someone were to make that comment or make a negative comment, please help us by correcting the comment and letting them know how you feel, that that's just not the right thing to say, do, or respond with regard to racial issues or racial inequalities.
So it's time to stop being silent.
That's right. That's exactly right. It is time to stop being silent.
Yeah.
And it might be uncomfortable. It might be uncomfortable, but you have to realize that's something that we go through almost every day, sometimes being uncomfortable. And I listen to my daughters now, just of, things that were, that they've gone through in school, in their different activities. And my daughters have been in what I would call some non, always Black activities. Like I have a daughter that's a sailor. I have a daughter that's a rower. My twins are Irish dancers. And so people have like, why would you pick this sport? Well, why not? Because it's predominantly a white sport or predominantly a white activity. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the Irish dance. They've traveled to Ireland. They've competed, in Scotland. So because they just love the art of the dance. Why do you sail? Because I love to sail. I love water, but they've had to, explain themselves where their friends are just saying, well, I'm just coming out here to sail. They have to like go an extra mile to explain why they just enjoy something that, may not always have been part of our culture, but I mean, it's something that they enjoy.
That's interesting that they have had to explain themselves. I've never thought about that. One of my favorite memories is actually Sarah and Jordan sharing the role of Cinderella in 5th grade. Isn't that awesome? I thought that was
it really was. That was so awesome. It really was. It really was. And they loved, that shows you the progressive teachers and the progressive people that, again, it didn't matter, the person that had the best voice got the part. And because they had 2 different casts, because I know that Morgan at one time, she played Belle one year. And then Jordan did the Cinderella. And then they also, when they were in middle school, they did Lion King. So again, what they competed, they auditioned, and again, the teacher said, the person that has the ability will be the one that gets the part.
We certainly have been blessed by some wonderful teachers, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, Jean, I just want to give you an opportunity. Actually, I had one other quick question, and then I'll give you an opportunity to wrap up. It just occurred to me, and I hadn't sent you this question. Is there anything different that you would tell us about an experience that you've had? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jean? I don't know why. You can't hear me?
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we had a little bit of technical difficulty there, so we're going to get back together now to finish up. Jean, I had one final question, and then I was going to let you just kind of finish up in any way that you'd like to. It occurred to me that being a Black woman might be a different experience than being a Black man. And we haven't heard from any African-American women until now, talking with you. Is there anything unique to your experience that you think might help us to continue these conversations and move ahead?
Well, as a woman, there have been many inequalities. And I don't know that I have necessarily effectively differentiated whether it's because I'm a woman or an African American woman. I do know that there's a great deal of information that I've read. For example, when it comes to Black women in healthcare, it seems that our voices a lot of times go unheard, and that the care and optimal treatment that we as African American women do not receive the same thing as our white sisters. That if we have certain complaints, either they go unheard or they don't take those next steps. And I think that that could have been some issues that I've been faced with, but I have a very strong personality. So I am not going to, allow something just to, go unheeded. I'm going to respond to something, or I'm going to ask questions until I have the right answer. And maybe that is what my mother trained me to be. My mother made sure that, and I do the same thing with my girls, don't just take somebody's first answer, or if somebody's trying to just sort of, quickly, sort of thwart your situation. You don't allow that to happen. You stand up and you effectively let them know that's not going to, I'm not going to just let that, stand for that. So I would say as a woman, as a Black woman, that I'm going to make sure in a kind manner that I'm treated fairly as I would treat anyone else fairly. And I've heard things like, say sometimes, that, Black women, there could be an angry Black woman. Nobody's angry. It's just a matter that we just want the same respect that anyone else is given. And sometimes we've had to raise our voices in order to raise the consciousness of others that we're dealing with or speaking with, because people will try to take advantage of you. And I just, and I don't think that we should be treated unfairly because of the color of our skin or because of the gender of who we are. When I've gone into courtrooms, a lot of times, when I would bring in like my briefcase or like I roll in, the briefcase, I'd always hear, "Oh, you're the court reporter. You just go sit over there." Oh. No, I'm the attorney. I'm the attorney. Oh, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that was because, I was walking in with this briefcase as a female or because I was an African American. But I cannot even count the number of times that I was told that I was, the court reporter. I've walked into courtrooms in like Central Florida, and I will like cross what we call the bar, and and people would say, "Well, man, you have to sit back there until your attorney comes." I am the attorney. so again, I'm not sure where where that comes from, whether it's the female or the African American. So again. But in a very kind voice, I'd say, "But I'm the attorney," and and it's sort of, after a while, it became sort of I just love to look at their faces and in shock, So, but then I look, in the corporate world, there's so many policies and procedures that have been put into place here in the corporate world, and it's very interesting to see, the strength of where women are, in the corporate arena, Black women, white women. And so I'm very proud to see the steps that we've taken and that we've instituted and implemented. And that's why I say to my girls, really, there are no holds barred. You just study, be the best that you can be, okay, learn, and, you just keep climbing that step, because right now, because we're having these conversations and because we are women, there's no reason that you can't just climb to the top.
That's right.
And that's how I feel, as a mom, as a corporate professional. I'm happy that in the courtrooms and the boardrooms that we're having these conversations to ensure that people are protected.
Right.
Okay, protected against any racial injustice, protected against any gender inequalities, and so and the church protect us as Christians and one another so that we can continue to serve God and which gives us the strength to get up every day, and we are so blessed. So, and that's why I say to my girls, I know that we have injustices. I know there's inequalities, but you serve an amazing God, and you continue to worship Him, and He will, provide your steps. That's where you have to go all the time. If something happens, say a little prayer before you respond. Before I used to say, don't just respond, say a little prayer so you can receive that guidance, and that's why you have that relationship with God, so that, we can be, the leaders and powerful to work towards, and I'm not talking about, leaders as far as, but I'm talking about as Christians that we can lead by example, so that we can deal with some of these negative situations that are going on.
For sure. Well, you have given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate your perspective and your open heart, and just sharing the experiences of your life with us. And I know that it's going to create a wonderful platform for our discussion this week on Wednesday. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I thank your church for having these very frank conversations. I think that, again, I think I'm going to go talk to our church about doing the same thing, because, it's so difficult now. We're still having our church through, online, but this is great. It's a great platform to discuss, the issues of the day, and to have this dialogue and to learn from one another. So I really applaud you. I thank you, Madeline, and I'm so proud of you for all that you've done, and I'm so, happy for you in your new role. So I just want to say to you and your church, thank you, and continue to be the leaders that you guys are.
Thanks, Jean. Would you mind if I prayed for us real quick before we finish up?
Please.
Okay. God, we thank you so much for this time that we've had together to just talk and to listen to one another. We're so thankful for the experiences that Jean has shared with us today. May you walk with her and her family and all of us as we try to do the best that we can to be in this world together and to share your love with one another. Thank you, Lord, for all of your blessings. And all of God's people said, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Madeline.
You take care of yourself. We'll see you
soon. You too. All right.